I think we're live. Hello. Yep, I think I got sound and everything. Hello. Thanks very much for coming by. Um, Today we're talking about miniature leaded windows. I have been building my D&D diorama for quite some time. And so now I'm at that point where I'm building those windows and I wanted kind of period windows. They're supposed to be kind of medieval stuff. It's based on a book by Raymond Feist. And it's all early on, it's all like medieval kind of stuff, dragons and sorcerers and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of emulate that. Oh, and we got some folks coming in. And so earlier, I just want to say hello to people. Hello, Paul. Paul came in earlier. Hello, and thank you very much. And Scott came in. Hello. Hi, everybody. Be sure you like and subscribe. Just trying to help out Bill. Thanks very much, Scott. That's really awesome. I really, really appreciate that. Mark is here. Hello, Mark. How are you? I hope you are well today. And John is here. Hello. And happy Friday, everyone. Thanks very much, John. That's really, really cool. So what we're going to talk. Oh, and then Jordy is here. Hello, Jordy Models is here. If you guys haven't looked at like the people in the comments and kind of followed up, we have some amazing modelers here. We have some amazing folks that do other stuff. Jordy just did. I don't know all the German aircraft names and stuff like that, but I think he just did one recently, and that was great. It was pretty small. I thought the picture, it made it look a lot bigger, but then when I saw this, it was like it's a tiny one, 1/72nd. I'm not sure, but anyway, yeah, go and look at other people that happen to be in here. It was a Stuka. Very, very cool. And I love Stukas. Why didn't I understand? I don't know. But anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about, Therapy Kit is here. Thank you very much, Therapy Kit. I really appreciate you coming in. I don't know if it's your first time, but I don't recognize you. So it's so wonderful to have you in. Thank you very, very much. And Jordy says it was a 1/44th Stuka. Yeah, 1/72nd. It was a heck of a lot smaller than that. So yeah, but it looked great. So much detail at that small. That's something that I haven't got a handle on that yet. But like I did a 32nd 109, last year for Wolfenstein. But man, I haven't done any tiny aircraft like that. But great detail on that, and the painting was phenomenal. So very, very cool. Thanks very much, Jordy. So I've been talking about this D&D diorama. I'm going to switch over here and show you what we're looking at here. And it is, I'm going to go to a different picture. It is this. That's the diorama. And I want to I like doing this because it kind of gets some folks that maybe not familiar with it a little bit more familiar with the layout here. On the left-hand side, it's a multi-story, it's a 3-story building. It has an attic as well as a basement on the backhand side of it. And that is Barrett's coffee house. The room above it is undefined as of yet. I don't know. Then there's a bridge that goes across, and then there's a warehouse. And this is just a snapshot of a little town, a little like a waterfront, oceanfront town called Krondor from, I keep this nearby, my favorite author, Raymond E. Feist, and the world he created with his D&D friends, frankly. Pardon me. And they got together and they did that, and he credits them in the book, which is wonderful because I'm building it 35, 40 years later as, something that somebody can game in, because that's the whole purpose of this thing too, is to be able to game inside this diorama. So back to the old diorama. Today we're looking at miniature leaded windows, and I had a lot of trepidation going into this because leaded windows, they're pretty recognizable. I think the nice thing is I found a way to make them that is not too sketchy. It's really, I think it's readily available stuff. I had some really great comments for folks, saying, "Hey, where can I get these materials, or what are you going to use, or here's some suggestions of materials." And I'm like, man, I love all that, but some of those were expensive and other things I didn't have available. So I tried to use things that were around the house, and that's what I did. Therapy Kit says, "I see you to France. I see you to France when the time is right. I'm here." Hey, thanks very much, Therapy Kit. That's very, very cool. Coming in from France. So, in making these windows, going in with trepidation, wanting to kind of get stuff that's right here, you can use it. This is what I ended up doing. So first I build these frames, and I'm going to show you how to do that live today. But then when it comes to the glass, I'm sorry, there's just the frames inside the window base. But when oh gosh, see, I'm all over the place. Here it is. Here's the glass that I used. And the reason I wanted to make note of that is this is just plastic from an old picture frame that Mrs. Modelcraft found for me. I wasn't sure. I had some kind of lighter plastics and things like that could have worked in a pinch, but I wanted a little bit more rigidity, and so these were just from an old picture frame. She found two of them for me. They worked wonderfully, and so I was able to use something that I didn't have to go buy. I love that. The next thing that was important was finding something to make what would simulate the leaded window. Now, if you're not familiar with a leaded window, let's go back to a picture because this could help. There we go. These are leaded windows. Pardon me. I'm going to go to a tighter shot here that I have. And in this tighter shot, I think you can see on the window that I've got these very thin strips of that masking tape. And that masking tape is black. I have it somewhere here. I originally did just the blue tape, like we all have possibly around, and it works wonderfully for your models because it has a different kind of tack level than regular masking tape. So I was a little bit worried about that, but I went and found some black masking tape. I cut the black masking tape on a piece of glass. Again, we're going to show you this today, how I do it, and a special tool that I built, and you kind of saw it in the pictures as I was scrolling through here. But that tool, while it works, it's a little finicky. So I'm going to show you that. But anyway, I cut 1/32 inch strips, pardon me, very, very small strips of masking tape. And then I applied them to the window. There we go. This is probably a better picture. So that's the window I just holding up there. And the thing about this is, if you look very closely at that masking tape, it has texture. And a leaded window does have texture on those leaded areas. So we're going to take, this is actually the plastic, but we're going to say it's a piece of glass. So a leaded window, what you do, and I don't know if this is exactly how they did it back in the day, but I've made leaded windows. And today what you have is a piece of copper tape. And depending on how thick the glass that you're using is, the copper tape can be of varying widths. What I used was like 1/4 inch wide copper tape. It's gummed on one side. It comes on a roll, just like tape. And then you take that copper tape and you put it right on the edge of the cut glass. It's important to note that the copper tape doesn't stay just on the edge. It also folds down on either side of the glass. And by doing that, it'll have just like a little border all the way around your piece of glass. Now, it's different if you're doing, let's say, stained glass. Stained glass uses a channel, and you're placing it in a channel, and it's all different stuff. This is leaded glass, okay? So once everything then has that copper tape around it, then you arrange all of your pieces typically in a straight line geometric pattern, like I'm using here. Then you go in with lead, solder, I think it's mixed tin. I don't know. I don't think it's pure lead these days, but you go in and then you put lead down on that copper. There's a little bit of flux you put down first, and then you go all over that copper. And what happens is, and once you do one side, you got to flip it over and do the other side. It's pretty fast. You're using a pretty large soldering iron, with like a very large tip, so it holds its heat quite a bit. And you just walk your way down with that solder, and it fixes all those panes of glass together. Now, they're not as strong as maybe a regular pane of glass. They're pretty strong, but you also may want to have some support behind that leaded glass. So sometimes there would be a support worked in, like a piece of metal or something like that, through one of the main areas of that leaded glass, like, maybe the middle. But for a lot of them, it wasn't necessary. Okay, so that's leaded glass. So what we're trying to simulate then with this picture is that lead line that's put between these individual panes of glass, and it's been soldered together. Here it's black, but I did do some where I painted them gray, and it looks great because of the texture of the tape. And I think it's the texture of the tape that's really important. The texture, I think everybody has basically seen the texture of masking tape. Well, it's the same thing for the black masking tape. It's the same texture, but that looks like that unregular kind of, it's not like beautiful like a weld line, when you're doing a very good weld line. Eric Brubaker, one of the guys that's typically on here, he's a welder, and boy, he can just do these welds that are beautiful. Lead's not necessarily that pretty looking because you're melting this stuff. So some of it can get pretty choppy. Well, the texture that comes off this masking tape lends itself to that beautifully. So anyway, after all of that, that's how I came up with this process. I tried it out with the blue tape. It worked. I didn't have any black tape. Mrs. MC found some black masking tape. I got it here the next day. And then I started making these. So I'll show you how to do that. Now, after I've got those 1/32 inch strips of masking tape on there, then well, it's not shown here, but I've got a video that shows this. I paint it with its future. It's Pledge Floor Care. Now, I don't know if you can still get this. Earlier this week, when I said this is what I use, some people said, "Hey, better hang on to that. They don't make it anymore." Boy, I hope not. I've almost got a full one, so I think it's okay. But what it is, it's an acrylic floor polish. Goes on wet when it dries, and it dries very quickly. It gives you a very, very nice coating over the whole thing. So before I painted, and you saw a picture there of kind of some stained glass here. Before I painted this, prior to that, what I did was I painted on that clear acrylic floor polish covering. I don't know what the heck to call it. Floor care. And you paint that over there. It's self-leveling. You kind of dab it off. And as it dries, it gives you that nice look. And it also kind of keeps that that masking tape from having an edge that could possibly peel up, because the whole thing gets coated. It's just a beautiful system. I'm really happy that I figured this out. I didn't see anybody else do this, but I imagine somebody else has done it. These are such common materials. I can't think that I'm the first person that came up with this. But if you're looking to do it, this is the way I would do it. I had some other suggestions. I had some other folks say, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" I looked at those, and I think this is better. So, and the fact that you can do it on your own, I love. You can buy windows everywhere. They're laser cut, they're perfect and stuff like that. But what if what you're trying to do isn't the dimensions that they want? Well, that's the other way that this is maybe a better system than that. It's not hard to do. Does take a few tools, but I'm going to show you those tools, and you can make your own windows. So anyway, I want to go through some comments, and then we're going to go to the live. I'm going to show a couple more pictures, but then we're going to the live, and I got the top down set up, and we'll build the window like full on. Okay, so John says, yes, that masking tape texture really helps it look realistic. Very cool. Thanks, John. Problem solved. Hello, problem solved. Thanks very much for coming in. I got to see leaded glass being made once. It was very cool. Yeah, it was so cool. My cousin, she had like a studio, and she's like me. She just loves crafts, just like anything. She's glass and she's all these different things. She's turning woodworking now and all kinds of stuff. But at the time, she had all this leaded glass stuff. We went over to her house and I made my own leaded glass for a cabinet that I made. It was the greatest process. It was not hard. It's not something that you have to, expend a lot of money to get into. I think, that, people are sometimes worried about, that it's a difficult thing because, well, there's this ramp up of tools and materials and stuff like that. Not really that expensive to get into real leaded glass. And you can make some small ones for in your house, outside, but whatever. But anyway, it's a neat process. And that's one of those things that I like to talk about, about building dioramas, is the fact that if you have that varied background, if you have a lot of experience with other crafts, other materials, other things that you've done, you can pull, I think, that experience into to what you're building now. And you're going to enhance it, I think, whereas other people that are only building models or only building dioramas that are very, very focused may not have some of that other experience and doesn't translate into their diorama. So anyway, we'll see if that pans out over the years. So why don't we take a look at the top down real quick? And I got to fire it up, and then we will see how to make these. So I got to turn this on. Sorry, my camera, it's wonky. But now we can go here and do that. So here is the desk just right in front of me. And I'm going to move a couple of things because I really do want to start from the very beginning. And that is by showing you how I cut the wood. Now, this is just regular basswood that you can get from the hobby store. It is certainly easy enough to take a straight edge and place it along here and then cut it. You can do that. What I prefer to do, because I have this tool, is use what's called a marking gauge. And a marking gauge is something that's used in woodworking, and it's typically used for just marking in the wood. And so there's a little blade right there, and there's this stop. And so when I put it up against there and I go from here to here, it's marking a line. I'm not pressing very hard to get that line, but that line in here is now parallel. I'm going to zoom in to see if you can see that line. It will focus, I promise. And I don't know if you can see that line, but it's marking a line. Let's see if I can get some. I'm going to turn off autofocus. This is always a problem. John, help. So there we've got that line. You can barely see it there. So that's what the marking gauge is for. But what I'm going to use it for, pardon me, is I am going to use it for cutting. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper, and then I'll flip it over and I'll do the other side. And because I'm kind of pressing and into that, it's going to cut relatively easily. Then I'll take a scalpel, and I like to run it this way. I'm not trying to cut this thing free. I'm trying to make sure that I've got my line nice and defined and letting the blade cut the wood. I'm just taking it easy. I'm not trying to force anything. And there, look at that. It'll eventually start cutting. Now, I might seem a little bit overly cautious with the way that I do this, but, you know, there's a lot of, like, let's call it after finishing or post finishing of your raw materials. If you're a little bit sloppier, I guess is maybe the word. You're a little sloppier when you're cutting this stuff. As long as you're careful doing it for the first time, boy, it's just going to be a lot easier to work with. So I cut a bunch of these strips. Then what I'll do is these will become the frame. Now, building the frame, if you are ordering these online, maybe you can give them dimensions for someone. I'm trying to get part of the model here so you can see. Maybe I'm going to go to the other camera because this is going to be a nightmare to see. So in here, you're going to someone and you're saying, look, I need 3 windows, and here they are. And I don't know if there's a service like that, but you can go and say, I would need a window this size, this size, this size, because each of these are a different size. Well, if you're going to someone to try to order that, you may not have to do that. You may have to alter your model or whatever to fit those windows. This method allows you to fit the window to the opening very, very easily because you're taking the measurement directly from the window itself. It's cake. So let's go back here. And I know this is funky as all get out, folks, but hopefully this will resolve right now like that. So here, I just take it up here, and it's as simple as you would imagine. I'm just taking a pencil, I'm holding it underneath here, and I'm taking direct measurements, just like that. And I mark it right there. Once I've got it marked, then there's another trick I like to use, and this is the exact wrong thing to do because I've got this backing here. But there's a grid pattern that we all have on our cutting mats. And that grid pattern also includes a 45-degree angle. So I just line this up to my mat, and then I take a chisel. I don't use a knife. I don't even use a scalpel because there's a bevel on that side. There's a bevel on that side. Same thing with, X-Acto or Excel blades. There's a bevel on both sides. So you're not going to get a straight up and down cut. But if I use a chisel, there's the bevel, but on that side, it's completely flat. So what I'm going to be able to do is go in here, come straight down and hit that 45-degree angle. Now you notice I am not using the grid below to get that 45-degree angle. I didn't mark it or anything. And this is just something that happens when you're a woodworker. The back of this chisel is a mirror. So it has been polished and honed and stuff. So it's a mirror. So, and I tried to take a picture, I can't. But when I'm looking here, I'm looking at the blade. Let's see if I can do this a little bit better like this. I am looking at the blade right here. Oh, I can show this on the thing right there. There we go. Can you see that? See how it's reflecting in there? As long as look, I don't have any mark there. As long as I'm looking at the blade and I can turn the blade so when I see a sharp 90-degree corner, I just press down and cut. That's a 45-degree cut right there. So that's how I cut, to get these right. Again, you can use your mat and there's marking guidelines and stuff like that on it to make your 45. But if you have a chisel and you do that kind of stuff, that's one of the things that you do in woodworking. So anyway, there's a 45. I cut my other 45. And then when I've got all of my sides cut and stuff like that, then I just simply glue them together. That now is going to be a custom-made, custom-fit frame window that I can put into my diorama. So the next step is I just put a little bit of plastic on there. Now, how do I do that? Well, this is that plastic that I got from Mrs. MC gave me from just some picture frames. Be careful with this because this is just plastic and it'll scratch. I don't know if it's plexi, I don't know what. But when I was cutting it, I noticed that it's extruded, meaning that it actually has grain in it. You can't see it. But when you're cutting it, if I cut too much on this way, it'll literally run up the plastic. So just be careful when you're working with this plastic. It's not like plexi. Plexi just doesn't really work that way, but this does. Okay, I got a couple of things. John says that chisel mirror trick is awesome. Perfect 45s every time. Yeah, and it works great, John. It's just one of those things that you do, and obviously you've got to polish your chisel up there. But these just about came that way. I didn't have to do a lot of work when I bought these. I'll try to find I think they're Schoberg, Schorberg. I think that's what these are. But I'll look them up, John, and we can talk about it tonight because John is going to be on the group build tonight. I hope you can make it, sir. So anyway, so be careful cutting this plastic. It works great, but be careful with it. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, a lot of people in modeling would go, what in the heck are you doing? I use CA on this. And I mean, that was a thought from the very start. Am I going to get fogging? Am I going to get gassing off on this plastic? I didn't. Maybe it's the way I did it. I don't know, but let's go take a look. So here is my piece that I did. And all I do is I take regular medium CA glue, and then I put it on here. I mean, I'm not gobbing it on, but I put a fair amount on, and then I'll take the frame and put onto the plastic. I don't put the plastic on the frame. I put the frame on the plastic, and then I just hold it down for a little bit, and then it will, it'll glue up real quick. I never got any gassing off. All of these, none of them. No gassing off whatsoever. Okay, so that's on there. The next part was to go ahead and actually cut the strips and put them on here. So I've got some of them started, but I'm going to show you how to cut them because there's also a tool that I made that, while it works, I kind of didn't use it the whole time. So this, I'm going to go back to pictures at this point because I think in my slides is where I have the pictures of this tool I made. And they're all the way at the front, wouldn't you know? So here it is. Let's look at this. So this is just an Excel knife. Lots of people have these. This one in particular, I think, is good because this ferrule at the top. Okay, I've got other Excel bodied knives, and this isn't as big. This little silver part, that aluminum part, it's longer. It's a little bit thicker. And that's what helps compress this little chuck that I'm going to show you that I modified to get a dual blade in here. So I'm going to show you that next. In here, I've got, when you take it out, this is the little, I don't know, chuck. I don't know what you call it, but that's what holds your blade. It's cross-cut. In these two pictures, it's the same one. It's not before and after. It's just in one direction, I have the two. It can hold two blades. In the opposite direction is what it looked like before I did it. And the thing I did was I just went in and took it over to my belt sander, put it in between there, started it. When I got it big enough, then I was able to go ahead and get a file in there, and I used my file to file that down. I went down just far enough to get to the bottom of the tang on each of the blades and made sure, they fit in there and they do slide in there. It's not overstressing the aluminum little collet there. And then I just put the same blades in there and there you go. So now I've got a dual blade knife. And the cool thing is it will cut a super thin piece of masking tape, 1/32 of an inch, very consistently. The difference is this: my eyes are still pretty good, and I was able to do it faster just by eyeballing it. So and that's what I'll show you. I'll show you how this works. This two-bladed knife works because it does work just fine. And I'll tell you why it's persnickety, but I'll also show you just doing it with your regular old knife blade. So, I mean, this was fun because there's definitely use for this. The fact that it is consistent as all get out. I mean, it really is. every time it cuts, it's the exact same width. And when I'm doing this, they're probably not. I mean, they're off a little bit because I'm just doing it by eye. But you be the judge in the process here. So, oh, that's the wrong camera. So this is my piece of glass. If you haven't cut on a piece of glass before, give it a shot. It works really well. You can certainly tape a piece of tape on your cutting mat and cut, and that's fine. But I find that I can get super sharp cuts, super fine edges by cutting this way. So what I do is I just take it here, and this is terrible because you can't see. There's no contrast. Let's do that. That's a little better. I'm just going up here, and I'm literally just eyeballing it. And I think after doing it a few times, and that's what I did, is just after a few times, you can just kind of figure it out. So I just, got that, that distance, and then cut it, and then you just bring them up, and there you go. I mean, it's just that simple. No difficulty whatsoever. Now, the dual bladed tool, again, it works fantastic, but here's the problem, or I guess the persnickety part. And let's get real tight here. I'm going to try to really get this sucker in here so you can see. What's happening here is, because I have two blades in there, what I have to do is I kind of have to go in here. I'm going to bring this down so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going in here and I'm kind of hooking the one blade on the edge and then bringing my straight edge up to it. And then I'm doing the same on the other end of the cut, to line it up properly. Then once it's lined up, sure, I just go down there and it's great. And just like the other one, it worked. Okay, and the problem is this. Every time I do that, I've got this little thing where I've got to kind of, grab the edge and set it down. I can't do a bunch at a time because I tried that, and you can do it. Instead of, doing it that way, I come in here and grab it on the cut line, not the open edge, grab it on the cut line. There we go. Now I'm doing it again. But you see, I guess though it works just fine and they're nice and consistent, it just takes longer than this, where I just kind of line it up, get a good sight on it, bring it in there, and you're done. So that's, I just wanted to be fully, transparent with that. That is how I made most of these. You got to be careful, of course, but that's how I made most of these. Just cutting with the straight edge. I like the little tool that I modified. Like I said, I think there's going to be other uses for it, to have just a dead on cut line. I think cutting an arc or a curve would be brilliant. I haven't tried, because I have thought of doing like a full on now stained glass, where it's like an image or something like that. And I know I've showed pictures of it, but I haven't really gone back to it. And we're going to do that next. But I think that's where it would excel, because then I would have just like a big piece of the masking tape, and I can go anywhere and just cut all these different lines, and it's two line, and then I can pull that out and then utilize that to build whatever image I'm building. So that would work fine. But for the straight edge, heck, it's just easier to, to hold it there. If you don't have the experience or the eyesight left to do that, then that's one way to do it. Also, trying to find something like a straight edge that you can index. Index meaning that I can have it stay straight every time, and then I move it a specified amount, and it's repeatable, would be a nice way to do it too. And there are like paper cutters and like for scrapbooking and things like that. And that was a big thing in the 90s. So I bet you could find one for a lot cheaper now, and it's got a roller knife and everything. So anyway, there's a lot of ways to do this, but I think it was just as easy to do with a straight edge and a knife. So there you go. Hold on here, just a second. Ba-ba-dee-ba-doo-ba-doo. Hey, Jordy says, gotta run, catch up later. Thanks very much. Appreciate that, Jordy. And then John says, imagine the glass also helps preserve the adhesive on the tape. Yes, it very much does. Everything comes off on the tape. I think everything is going to come off on your cutting mat too, but the cutting mat itself has texture. There is a fine texture on your cutting mat. And as I'm rolling my or not rolling, but pulling my knife through it, I just don't think it is going to be as sharp of a line. So yeah, like John's saying, on the glass, it's great, preserves your adhesive on the back of the tape, the gum, if you will. And yeah, and they stick very well. That's the other thing that's really nice. Sleazen, hello, Sleazen. Great to see you. Sleazen's been talking to me a lot this week, checking stuff out. That's really, really cool. Nice to see you. I think the solution is to join 30 blades together. I think that's a fine idea, John. Now, here's something else I wanted to make a point on what John is saying. I put 2 of the same blades in here. I don't know if it's like if your desk is like my desk. I have both Excel and X-Acto blades. I wouldn't want to try one and the other in here. I'm either going to put 2 X-Acto blades in here or 2 Excel blades in here. And you want that because these things are put through a machine for the processing, and you want these things to be just exactly the same. And so even when I took them out of my pack, I made sure it was brand new blades because I sharpen my blades. I don't know if you sharpen your blades. I sharpen my blades all the time. So like this one, if I had to put that in there, they wouldn't have matched up. It's an X-Acto blade. So yeah, and just see, I tangent like this all the time. But if you do not sharpen your blades, I would highly recommend it. This is a little, and I built a little wooden stand for it, but it's just this little square sharpening stone, and it's fantastic for sharpening blades. That's my double blade. I can't do that. But for my individual blades, and I do this all the time, it helps preserve the blades, number one. But have you ever been pressing too hard on an X-Acto blade or an Excel blade and you just take the tip off? I mean, the blade's fine, but you just took the bloody tip off, and you really want that tip. So that's where sharpeners come in really fine and work great. You can sharpen these; they are disposable, but it's spring steel. It'll hold a blade for a lot longer. What I think is important, if you can, is get some kind of a strop, some kind of a buffing system. I have an electric sharpener, a buffer that it's just like a strop. It's a leather strop on a wheel, and I can put it on there, and so I can get a really glass blade on that. The back of here, the fact that I can see in the back of that's part of that. That truing and that buffing process, the processing and truing up your tools. Okay, so it feels like I'm just avoiding something. I'm not. I promise you, we're going to put some of these on here because I also had people saying, well, how do you make sure that everything's all lined up? It's all still eyeballing it. So let's do that. I am going to go back here. We're going to get rid of this. I've got those strips on there, and I'm going to use them. But now we're going to take this here guy, and I'm going to show you how I put those strips on here. And it's there's no rocket science. I was previously using some blue tack underneath these when I did them before, because you do want to secure these. They do need to be set before you start working on them, because it's a pain in the what if it isn't. So blue tack is fine. Here's just a little blue tape. And then I'm going to take these, and I was doing them individually. I didn't really cut a bunch at once like I've got here. But last night I was doing it individually. Now on something like this, and you see it's kind of a rectangular shape for the window. It's not square like this one. But to get the angles that I want, and here's another example, to get those angles, to get those diamond patterns, I'm going from corner to corner. On some of the different ones like this because it's a thin window. I didn't go from corner to corner because these would be too steep. They're still a little bit too steep. But what I did was I just went from this corner. I always started from a corner, you know, oops, it's upside down. So I always started from a corner and went down. Here I went about 3/4 of the way down. And that's where it exited, meaning that I started my tape there in the corner and then came down here. So we'll come back to that. So I start in that corner and then come down. Then I go to my next one and I start in the opposite corner and come down. And here's what I'm looking for. This is, I think, the number one thing, no matter where you start and where you go with the start and the end. I want to try to make sure that that first intersection is right in the middle, not necessarily the middle of the window here, you know, midpoint between here and here, you know, not that middle, but this top middle. That's the middle I'm looking for. Because what I want to do is I want to have intersecting lines that line up all the way down the center of this window. You're going to see what I mean as I go a little bit further. Now, all I'm doing is I'm taking this and, like I said, I'm just eyeballing it. And the first time I did it, I was way too close. And I went back and I figured it out. They're about 1/8 of an inch apart at the edge. And I just try to be consistent all the way through. It's really great that I'm doing this on a black background. You can probably see it a little bit better than I can. So there, you see, I went down below this one, or I'm sorry, above this one. I'll do the same thing on the other one. I'll go above this other cross piece. And all I'm trying to do is establish my first diamond. Once I've got my first diamond, it just kind of gets real easy there because you've got all the little cardinal points off the diamond that you're trying to match as you go. And what I mean by that is here, I'm going to get something to point with. This would probably be better. Here, right there and there, those should line up. Nah, they're okay. They're lining up pretty good. And then here and here should line up. The top and the bottom of the diamond should line up. So once you have that lining up with that lining up with that, as you put more strips on here, and I'm running out of strips real quick, but then you're just trying to duplicate, not necessarily, well, I mean, you are trying to get, you know, this distance here, but how I check the distance is making sure that that diamond matches that diamond. Does that make sense? That was what really helped me as I went further in adding these. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just adding straight lines, you know, until I get them all on there. Now, I've got some pictures to show that process. So let's go to those real quickly. I think if I'm doing this, yeah, I need to go down here. So that's where we are, right? I've established that diamond, and then I had this on a board, and it actually helped because then I could rotate the board. I could just take the board. It was this board here. And I could just rotate that so that it was just easy to put that little tiny strip down, and I could get, you know, a good eyeball as to where it needed to be. I kept doing that, and I would just put one at a time. It's kind of weaving them in as it's doing it, but then that's what you see at the end of it. I didn't do any measurement on this whatsoever. It's just eyeball, and it's not like, ooh, I'm so good at this. No, I think that everybody can do this. This is easy enough to do because when you create those references, you can see that pattern emerge real easily. So after I got all of those strips on there, then I just kind of trimmed them back, and then I painted on the future. You know, the floor, I don't even know what to call it. It's not wax, but it's like floor coating or something. And by doing that, that settled in everything real good, and then again made that coating right over the top. So let me see if I have. There we go. So after that was done, I ended up with this. Now I also had planned from the start. I need some water. I'm going to start coughing. I had planned from the start to have like a sandwiched window. I wanted this to be the inside of the window. That's our frame that we started with. But then this is the outside of the window. And I wanted that specifically because the doors that I made on the diorama, they're the same material. And I think the doors and windows should probably have the same material. So I made frames for all of those. And um, that, the one I was just showing you, didn't take too much. You can see it's just the same frame. I put a center mullion in it and then two stepped deals. And I just cut those at the same time. And used my oscillating sander. Then this one, we've seen this before. I haven't put wood on it because I want to paint it, and that's what brings us to these. So I had a very cool comment. I got to see if I can find this. I have to swap, I think, to this. Yes. Potato, Fancy Potato said, they're so cool. Do you think you're going to do any stained glass? And up until that point, I hadn't really thought about stained glass. I I had just thought, well, heck, no, I didn't. But when Fancy Potato mentioned that, I'm like, you know what? This is supposed to be this one area. Well, I think there's a picture that's better than looking at my mug. This one area is supposed to be where I don't want any sight into that window. So that's here. This is on the very top floor, and you can see there it's that one top floor that I haven't really got an idea, though I have a fair idea of what I'm going to do now. But that is up high, and so I just wanted that window in there to kind of not be something you could see right in. Now, this does not have a frame. Each window doesn't have a frame around them yet on the outside like the other windows have. Like that window, it doesn't have that frame yet, but it will. But I think it'll be a little bit thinner. You can kind of see where I kind of trailed off the patterning and stuff like that. But I will have a very thin frame around the outside of that to mount it in that window. Also, painting this was nothing. I mean, because you have those little ridges created by the masking tape and stuff like that. I mean, it was really, I mean, you don't want it too much because there could be some bleed over. But I just basically filled in each of those little diamonds with a little bit of green and a little bit of I kind of wanted an ochre red, and I got it, I think. Yeah, it was great. It does have some transparency to it. So it will cast light. It will, I don't know what kind of shadows or if it'll bring any color into the room, but it looks good from the front and the back. So I'm very happy with it. I think these things came out great. And again, pretty readily available stuff. I hope like the floor polish stuff is still available. I don't know of another acrylic just clear, that is just so easy. I mean, it's just so self-leveling. I literally I just painted it on, let it drain, and then set it. And because of the temperature is, in the 80s and 90s for lots of us this time of year, 10 minutes, it's done. I was just great. And then, that's how I progressed. I did that coating, and then I painted it. And then I did a coating after the fact too, because I want to seal everything in. And that's it. I don't have to put anything else on these to go forward. Um, these windows, because there is a little bit of scratching on the plastic that I use. Sorry, it's a little easier to see. There is a little bit of scratching on the backside. I can use the finish on the inside of the window, and that'll help. It's not going to eliminate all scratches, but it will fill in some of those light scratches and stuff like that, and makes it look good. So anyway, those are my leaded glass windows, and I did one of these here. It's this one, and I've done some grayish white paint on it. Maybe I can get it with the top down, and you can see, because I was not paying attention. But you see, that is with a little bit of white and like a gray green to make it look like an actual leaded, frame. All of those, this will get done to. And again, I'm doing it in a little bit of a splotchy pattern. Um, when you see these, it's not beautiful and perfect. The leading will, number one, it's uneven, a little bit uneven. But the other thing it'll do is it'll oxidize over time. It'll have a little bit of white oxidation on it. The lead, the gray color kind of gets replaced by other colors and stuff. So there will be some nice weathering opportunities on that, as I get into that. I'm not at weathering right now, but yeah, I think it works pretty good. So is that everything? I think that might be everything. I'm going to go back to our slides here, and we're going to take a gander and see what we got for slides. I got that slide. We looked at it. We looked at that. I love this look, by the way. It's coming along. That's it. We're done. How about them apples? So I hope you had a wonderful week. I certainly had a wonderful week. And I don't know what you're doing for the weekend, but there is an IPMS meeting in Seattle. So I'm going to go to that tomorrow. I haven't been to an IPMS for a long time. Just it conflicted with stuff. So it'll be great to go back to the IPMS model club meeting. So I'm going to do that. The Nats are coming up. The IPMS Nationals are coming up here in the next couple of weeks in Madison, Wisconsin. Not going to that. I've not been to a Nats. I'd like to go to one, but the one in Madison, that's a long ways away. But thankfully, the one in the following year is in Virginia, so it's so much closer. No, it's not. It's even further. I'm in Washington State. So, yeah, I don't know when I'm going to get it to a Nats. I would love to go. I don't fly well because of my back. It's just meh. I don't drive well, same reason. So I'm hoping that one of the Nats will get on the West Coast someday. Then I think I can go to one. I should have probably went to the last one that was in Vegas, but that was during COVID, and couldn't do it. But I would like to go to a Nats now. I never thought I would. When I first got into it, I thought, well, I'm just getting into it. Now I think it would be a lot of fun. I know so many more people online now, and I'm so impressed with so many people. I don't, and my stuff is so big. I don't know if I'd take anything because I'd have to. I don't know, but just to go there and see everybody, because every time I talk to somebody that goes to the Nationals or any of the large model shows around the world, they're just like, man, it was amazing, and I saw a lot of stuff, but it was the people. And it was meeting and seeing folks and having those conversations and being able to, two people stand next to each other and look at somebody else's work and admire it together. And you know what I mean? There's something very, very fun in that. I am really getting into that kind of thing. So yeah, I think a Nats is in the future, but it ain't going to be this year, and it certainly isn't going to be next year. But we'll see. Thank you so much for coming by today. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this part of the project. Making these windows, I had a lot of trepidation. I think I've said that about 14 times today. Had a lot of trepidation going into it. I had no idea where I was going to go with these windows. Had a very distinct image in my mind that I wanted to bring out, and I'm just I am so thankful it came up. Those comments that I put up, some of those were some suggestions and stuff like that. And those suggestions help lead me to this point. You know, um, One of them was saying, here's some mesh that I used and use like a UV light. And while I didn't want to get the UV light with the hyper clear, whatever that stuff is, that's what led me to using the future over it to get that really nice look. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I mean, those ideas really do contribute. They really do make a big difference for me when I'm modeling, when I can bounce ideas off people. And I do that throughout the week online. I'm bouncing stuff back and people are throwing me ideas. And I just want to say thank you because it's really, really fun. I'm not one of those modelers that says, I'm just building and you're here to watch. I believe it's a lot of collaboration with folks' ideas, and then me trying to figure out if I can do it. That's the hard part. So again, I'm just blabbering. I'm going to get going. You've got better things to do. Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time, and I hope you get some time modeling this weekend. We'll see ya. Bye bye.